Brother flirted with my girlfriend at Christmas, so I cut him off, but my parents chose him over me, saying rather have the better son for their anniversary. But karma is a bitch. I, 29M, never thought I'd be updating this story, but life has a way of coming full circle. For those who missed my original post, here's the backstory before I get to the absolutely wild update that happened last week. I'm still processing everything, so forgive me if this is a bit scattered. To understand this story, you need to understand my family. My brother Jake, 27M, has always been the golden child since we were kids. I still remember my 10th birthday when he won a little league game. My parents moved my birthday dinner to watch his game, and then the dinner turned into a celebration of his win instead. That pretty much sums up our entire childhood. Jake was the star quarterback in high school, dated the head cheerleader, of course, and got a full ride to an Ivy League school. Meanwhile, I was the disappointing son who preferred computers to football and chose to start at community college because I wanted to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. Every family gathering was an exercise in comparing us. Jake made the dean's list again, while I was working full-time and studying part-time. Jake got another promotion, while I was bootstrapping my IT consulting business. Even when I started making good money, it was never enough because it wasn't the prestigious career Jake had. I met Sarah, 28F, at a coffee shop 3 years ago. She was reading Pride and Prejudice while waiting for her drink, and I made a terrible joke about Mr. Darcy. Instead of rolling her eyes, she laughed and we ended up talking for hours. She's a pediatric nurse with the kind of genuine compassion that makes you believe in humanity again. She works in the oncology ward, dealing with sick kids every day, but somehow maintains this incredible light about her. Our relationship developed naturally and deeply. No games, no drama, just two people who genuinely enjoyed being together. My parents were politely interested when I told them about her, but it wasn't until they found out she had a master's degree and came from a good family that they really perked up. Mom actually said, "Finally, you're dating someone more on Jake's level." I should have seen that as the red flag it was. Last Christmas was supposed to be special. I had the ring picked out, a vintage sapphire piece that Sarah had admired in an antique store window months earlier. I'd been making payments on it for 6 months. The plan was to introduce her to my family at Christmas and propose on New Year's Eve at the spot where we had our first date. From the moment we arrived at my parents' house, something felt off. Jake was unusually interested in helping Mom set up, making sure he was free when we arrived. He answered the door in what I now realize was a carefully chosen outfit that showed off his gym results. The moment he saw Sarah, his expression changed. I'd seen that look before. It's the same look he had when I got my first car. He convinced our parents to buy him a better one a week later, or when I made varsity baseball, he joined and became team captain within a month. During dinner, Jake dominated the conversation. Every story he told was carefully crafted to make him look good and me look questionable. Remember the time I borrowed Dad's car in high school? Jake told it as if I'd stolen it for a joyride, conveniently leaving out that I was driving a neighbor to the hospital during an emergency. Remember his game-winning touchdown? Somehow my driving him to practice every day for 3 years never made it into that story. But it was the subtle things that really got to me. The way he'd casually touch Sarah's arm while reaching for the salt. How he kept refilling her wine glass without asking. The accidental knee bumps under the table that made her shift uncomfortably closer to me. Every time Sarah tried to tell a story about us, Jake would interrupt with something more interesting. During the gift exchange, Jake made his move. He handed Sarah a beautifully wrapped present, making a big show of how much thought he'd put into it. Inside was a first edition of Pride and Prejudice from the 1940s, in nearly perfect condition. Sarah had mentioned her love for the book exactly once during dinner, and Jake had somehow produced this incredibly expensive and specific gift. The book had to cost at least $500, probably more. It was an obvious power play, showing that he could casually spend that much on a woman he'd just met, while knowing I'd spent months saving for her ring. Sarah tried to decline the gift, but my parents insisted she couldn't be rude by refusing it. That's when Jake said something I'll never forget. "I noticed you have the mass market paperback edition. A woman like you deserves the real thing." The way he emphasized real thing while looking at me made his meaning clear. When Sarah excused herself to the bathroom, I followed Jake into the kitchen. The conversation went like this. Me, what the hell do you think you're doing? Jake, smirking, being a good host. Is there a problem? Me, you know exactly what you're doing. Back off. Jake, come on, bro. We both know Sarah's way too good for you. She deserves someone who can give her the life she deserves. Someone who didn't have to start at community college. Me, she deserves someone who actually cares about her, not someone playing games. Jake, games? I'm just being myself. Not my fault if she sees what a real success looks like. That's when I lost it. Years of competing with the golden child, years of being compared and found wanting, all came pouring out. I called him every name I could think of, told him he was a narcissistic piece of shit who couldn't stand seeing me happy. I brought up every instance where he'd taken something from me, every time he'd undermined me, every backhanded compliment and subtle dig. The shouting brought everyone running. Jake, master manipulator that he was, immediately switched to looking hurt and confused. He told everyone I'd attacked him for being friendly to Sarah. My parents, predictably, took his side instantly. But then something unexpected happened. Sarah, my beautiful, kind, conflict-avoiding Sarah, stepped forward and laid it all out. She told them about Jake's inappropriate behavior all evening. She revealed the Instagram DMs he'd been sending her for weeks before Christmas, asking for her number, suggesting they meet for coffee to get to know each other better. She showed them how he'd accidentally tagged her in photos of his luxury vacations and designer purchases. Instead of being horrified by Jake's behavior, my parents defended him. Mom said I was twisting things and Dad suggested Sarah was misinterpreting Jake's friendly nature. The final straw was when Mom said, "Jake's just naturally charming. It's not his fault if Sarah finds him attractive. Maybe if you'd put as much effort into your appearance as your brother." Sarah and I left immediately. In the car, she showed me everything, dozens of messages from Jake, each one more inappropriate than the last. He'd even gone so far as to contact some of her friends on social media, asking questions about her likes and dislikes, her schedule, even her relationship history. I blocked Jake on everything and told my parents I wouldn't be around as long as they enabled his behavior. The next few months were a parade of flying monkeys, relatives calling to tell me I was overreacting, friends from high school saying I was jealous of Jake's success, even my parents' pastor reached out to discuss the importance of forgiveness. Jake played the victim masterfully. He posted vague, sad messages on social media about family troubles and how hurt he was. He told extended family I was mentally unstable and needed help with my paranoia and anger issues. He even sent a letter to Sarah's workplace, expressing concern about my volatile behavior. When Sarah and I got engaged in January, I stuck to my New Year's Eve plan, and she said yes before I even finished the question. My parents' response was telling. Instead of congratulations, they immediately started pushing for reconciliation so Jake could be my best man. It's tradition for the brother to be best man, Mom insisted, completely ignoring the fact that Jake had tried to steal my fiancée. My parents' 35th anniversary was coming up, and they planned a huge celebration. The invitation arrived with a handwritten note: "We want both our sons there. Family should stick together. Jake misses his brother." I declined politely but firmly. Their response showed me exactly where I stood. Mom called me crying, saying I was tearing the family apart and choosing pride over family. When I tried to explain again why I couldn't be around Jake, she interrupted with, "You've always been jealous of your brother's success. He can't help being who he is." Then Dad got on the phone and delivered the line that would change everything: "If you're going to force us to choose between our sons, we'd rather have the better one. Jake would never put us through this. He understands family loyalty." That hurt more than I can express, but it also freed me in a way. I finally accepted that I would never be enough for them as long as Jake existed. I sent them a simple text: "Thank you for finally being honest. I won't bother you again." Here's where everything goes nuclear. Last week, Sarah received a call from her friend Emma, who works in the ER at the same hospital. Emma had just finished treating a patient named Madison, who came in for a pregnancy test and was having a complete meltdown. During the exam, Madison, 22F, mentioned her boyfriend Jake had been ghosting her for 3 weeks after she told him she might be pregnant. Emma recognized the name and details, and sure enough, it was my brother Jake. Madison was a junior nurse who'd started at the hospital 4 months ago, and Jake had been dating her while being engaged to his long-term girlfriend Rachel, 27F. But wait, it gets better. Neither woman knew about the other, and Jake had been spending a fortune keeping both relationships going. Madison had texts showing Jake promising to leave Rachel for her. Rachel, meanwhile, had been planning their wedding and had no idea Jake was cheating. Emma, being the MVP she is, did some digging. She discovered that Jake's lavish lifestyle, the expensive gifts, fancy dinners, luxury vacations he was always posting about, was being funded through embezzlement from his company. He'd been manipulating accounts and falsifying reports to siphon off money, all to maintain his image as the successful golden child. Madison's pregnancy test came back positive. When Jake wouldn't respond to her calls and texts, she decided to confront him at his office. By pure cosmic coincidence, she arrived just as Rachel was bringing Jake his usual Wednesday lunch. The scene that unfolded in the lobby of his prestigious firm was apparently spectacular. Madison, emotional and scared, started yelling at Jake about the baby. Rachel, holding a lunch bag from Jake's favorite deli, stood there in shock as Madison revealed their entire relationship. Then Rachel started yelling about her own 5-year relationship with Jake and their upcoming wedding. Jake, ever the manipulator, tried to play it cool. He attempted to gaslight both women, claiming Madison was just a crazy former colleague and telling Rachel not to believe her. That's when Madison pulled out her phone and started playing voice messages from Jake talking about their future together. Rachel, who apparently has a cousin in the company's finance department, was already suspicious of Jake's spending habits. She'd noticed discrepancies between his salary and his lifestyle but had dismissed her concerns because, well, he was Jake, he was perfect. After the lobby confrontation, she asked her cousin to look deeper into Jake's accounts. Within 24 hours, Jake's entire life imploded. The company's audit revealed he'd embezzled nearly $300,000 over 2 years. He was fired on the spot and is now under criminal investigation. Rachel, hurt and furious, exposed him on social media, tagging his company, professional organizations, and our entire family. Madison is keeping the baby and has already contacted a lawyer about child support. She's also filed a workplace harassment complaint, as Jake had apparently implied her job would be at risk if she told anyone about their relationship. He had connections on the hospital board. But the best part? During the investigation, it came out that Jake never actually finished his MBA. He'd been faking his credentials this whole time, using Photoshop documents and lying about his qualifications. The prestigious job, the perfect career, it was all built on lies. My parents called me yesterday, sobbing about how they don't understand what went wrong and how they raised him better than this. The best part? They wanted to know if I could help pay for Jake's lawyer since my business has been doing well lately. I let their calls go to voicemail and texted back a screenshot of their better son message from the anniversary. Sarah and I are getting married next month in a small ceremony. We've invited people who genuinely care about us and support our relationship. My parents aren't on that list. Rachel reached out to me last week to share everything she'd discovered. She'd been doing her own investigation since the breakup and found a pattern of deception going back years. Jake had been lying about everything: his grades in college, his job performances, even his volunteer work was fabricated for resume padding. The most ironic part? My less prestigious IT consulting business made more money last year than Jake ever legitimately earned. All those comments about me not living up to my potential look pretty different now. Jake is facing multiple legal issues. Criminal charges for embezzlement. Civil suits from his company. Potential fraud charges for the fake credentials. Upcoming child support battles. Possible workplace harassment charges. He's moved back in with our parents, who are still defending him. Mom's latest Facebook post talks about forgiveness and standing by family in troubled times. The hypocrisy would be funny if it weren't so sad. Sarah and I are expecting our own little one in 7 months, surprise. We found out just before all this drama exploded. Life has a way of giving you gifts when you least expect them. I've realized that living well and being true to yourself is the best revenge. While Jake was building a life of lies to impress others, I was building something real. It wasn't flashy or prestigious enough for my parents, but it was honest work that I could be proud of. To my parents, I hope Jake was worth it. Edit: holy shit, this blew up overnight. Thank you for all the awards and support. I've been reading every comment and appreciate all the kind words. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, the company is pressing charges against Jake. 2. No, I won't be helping with his legal fees. 3. Yes, both Madison and Rachel are doing okay. Rachel's family has been incredibly supportive, and Madison's got a great support system at the hospital. 4. About the vintage book, Sarah donated it to the hospital's children's ward. We decided we didn't want anything from that Christmas. 5. Several people have asked if I'm making this up. I wish I was. I have documentation of everything, including the legal filings which are public record. 6. Yes, we've already arranged security for our wedding. We don't expect drama, but better safe than sorry. Edit 2. Since many are asking, yes, I have proof of everything. I've been documenting all interactions since the Christmas incident. Rachel has shared all her evidence with me, including financial records and text messages. I'm not posting them here for legal reasons, but trust me, it's all real. Final update: Jake just posted a public apology on Facebook that basically blamed his actions on pressure from our parents to be perfect and stress from work. He somehow managed to make himself the victim again. Some things never change, man shrugging. Update 3, wow, this keeps developing. Just found out Jake had been using my business's name and reputation to secure some of his fraudulent deals. Fortunately, I have documentation showing these were unauthorized. My lawyer is handling it. Last edit, promise, for those wondering about my parents, they're still enabling Jake. They've refinanced their house to help pay for his legal defense. Mom's telling everyone who'll listen that Jake was set up by jealous colleagues. Meanwhile, they haven't bothered to ask about their future grandchild once. Guess some things really never change. Final update. I never thought I'd be writing this update, but life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Everything I've shared in previous posts has continued to unfold in ways I couldn't have imagined. Jake's legal troubles have only gotten worse. He was convicted of multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement, sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. The company he worked for pursued additional civil suits that essentially wiped out any financial resources he had left. Madison gave birth to a baby girl 3 months ago. Despite everything, she's chosen to co-parent responsibly. Jake's parental rights are severely limited due to his criminal record and the circumstances surrounding their relationship. Rachel, showing incredible strength, actually helped Madison navigate some of the legal complexities, proving that sometimes people can rise above trauma and support each other. My parents, true to form, have continued to blame everyone but Jake for his downfall. They've spent every penny of their retirement savings trying to clear his name. Mom still posts Facebook rants about how her perfect son was set up by jealous colleagues. Dad has mostly gone silent, which I'm told is unusual for him. But here's where things get interesting. Last month, my wife Sarah gave birth to our son, James. He's perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and looks exactly like Sarah. We decided to name him after her grandfather, who was the first person in her family to truly support her dreams. 2 weeks after James was born, I received a letter. Not from my parents, but from my grandmother, my dad's mother, who I hadn't spoken to in years. She'd been following everything through family gossip and wanted to meet her great-grandson. When we met for coffee, she revealed something that changed everything. Turns out, Jake's behavior wasn't new. She told me stories about how my father had been nearly identical when he was young, manipulative, constantly lying, always trying to one-up everyone. The golden child syndrome wasn't just about Jake, it was a generational pattern. Your grandfather and I watched your father do the same things to his siblings, she said. We tried to intervene, but family loyalty always won out. I'm glad you broke the cycle. She'd been quietly supporting me this whole time. She'd set up a trust fund for James when he was born, completely separate from my parents' knowledge. Someone needs to protect the good ones in this family, she told me, squeezing my hand. The most shocking revelation? She's been helping Madison legally, connecting her with resources and support. She even introduced Madison to a good lawyer who's helping her secure Jake's child support without additional drama. Last week, Jake's ex-fiancée Rachel got married. She invited Sarah and me to the wedding. It was a small, beautiful ceremony. During the reception, she pulled me aside and thanked me. Your story gave me the courage to leave, she said. Watching how you stood up to your family made me realize I deserved better. My business has continued to grow. We're now a team of 15 people, with contracts from some of the top tech companies in the state. Sarah continues her work in pediatric oncology, now with a flexible schedule that lets her spend more time with James. My parents haven't reached out since James was born. The last communication was a return birth announcement, marked return to sender with no explanation. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Sarah and I are building a life based on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine love. We're creating the family we always wanted, one where manipulation and conditional love have no place. Karma isn't a bitch. Karma is just the natural consequence of how you treat people.